Well, the
Ugh.
other thing I remember is, I mean, the whole like no smoking started when we
Mhm.
were kids,
Yeah.
and they thought they were smart and they'd go to the bathroom and
Back.
smoke and then come
Oh,
out. And it's like you can smell it, man.
the whole plane.
And then like, the flight attendants would come chasing after the person, like, excuse me. And, if you think about it, it's kind of crazy to think people who have never left the country, never been on a plane, suddenly are doing all these things at once, right? And they don't speak the language. They have no
They're
idea
driving.
what the rules are on a plane, for example. And then they're expected to abide by all these things suddenly. It's a lot.
Or
Must be
they'll be on the
nerve-wracking
phone.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary for them. I felt really bad. I was next to somebody who was like their first time flying, first time leaving their family, and phone how mal kore kantase because they're leaving, and it's like we're like mid-air, and he wouldn't hang up because just like all the emotion. It's like, bro, you gotta turn the phone off. Or the
Bruh.
embarkation cards where they're like, Apu, একটু আমাকে লিখে দিবেন.
Hey,
Yeah.
I used
I
to
do
be
that
that
all the
girl.
time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I filled
For
out
the
many.
entire row.
Yeah,
Yeah,
any
yes. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, again, like they can't even read any of that. It's just like if we were to go to a country where we didn't know the language. Like let's say we went to like Japan or something and
Yes.
everything is in Japanese and you're just
Yeah.
suddenly expected to figure it out. It's
Yeah, it's not easy.
it's
It is
crazy.
difficult. And so many of them, especially the ones that go into the Middle East to work as like labor workers,
Yeah.
they have to invest so much money to just have that opportunity. And then a lot of times it's a scam. And a lot of time
Hmm.
their salaries are withheld or they can't
Mhm.
eat well. Aren't able to communicate with anybody. It's really tragic.
Their
And
living
like,
conditions are really bad.
Mhm.
mhm, they're all crammed in like one little room. There was a
Yeah.
documentary or a movie that was out about that.
Yeah, they're severely abused in a lot of these countries. So I think some of it came out during the World Cup in Qatar. And some of the
Yes.
workers who died from building those stadiums were Bangladeshis.
Hmm.
And it was a similar thing, like, they didn't get paid. And I mean, it was just all kinds of crazy stories like that. And I mean, they treat a lot of South Asians. So one of the things is, being Muslims, predominantly Muslim, many Arab countries look at South Asian Muslims as like lower than them,
Hmm.
and it's just like, oh, you're not the same level. And they get
Yep.
mistreated when they go to all these countries, and
Yep.
but they're the ones doing a lot of the hard labor and the hard work, and but they get treated like shit.
Yeah. There was another story of this house help. It was somewhere in the Middle
Mhm.
East where she was beaten, and
Yeah.
there was a video that was circulating where she was hanging off the freaking balcony. Did you
God.
guys see
What?
that? Yeah, they like
No.
pushed
No.
her off. They had pushed her off the balcony, and she was literally just hanging. I don't know if she had fallen at the end or what happened, but yeah, I'm pretty sure she was Bangladeshi as well, but I could
In
be
an
wrong.
Arab household?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shit. I mean, when we talked to Farooq Bhai, all the Italians, we knew so
Mhm.
many people who told us like how they got there. There's a movie that just came out, Shah Rukh Khan. Didn't get very good ratings, but it's called Donkey, and that's what it's about. Like, I
Oh
know,
yeah.
but that's what it's about, and they actually show, I mean, it's Bollywood dramatized, but it is about bringing awareness to how these people migrate and the level of
Yeah.
desperation and their journey. And one of that, like when I saw the movie, it reminded me of um, Babu, who was the owner of the grocery store in Milan. There was only one, maybe two, and how he had made it like he owns this nice, really nice store. He's the owner, but how he got there, I mean, he basically started on foot from Bangladesh and had to go through all of like what, I don't even know my
Jeez.
geography now, like through Pakistan, Afghanistan,
Afghanistan and then
Yeah.
through there. And he was like in jail in Poland for like so many months. Like there's all this, it
Oh
was
my God.
awful. But this movie really was like Bablu's story. And then when he got here, and even now, a lot of people they show how they all come in those containers,
Yeah.
like and how you go into containers. So lots of Bangladeshis they would come, they still come in these containers, and they told us that because it's illegal, you can't. They don't just dock on land like normal containers because there's people and it's illegal. The whoever's on the boat, they push the container into the water like kind of close by and hope that it floats to whoever is receiving it.
Oh,
And people die just within that
yeah.
trans transition.
They're
Like actually there's a dalal, right, in the villages. You give your entire life savings to them,
Yeah.
and then they take most of it and they leave you with
hmm
nothing, and you're like risking your physically risking your life to get to a better place. And then when they get there, especially in Italy, they were paid with shoes. Like they weren't paid money.
hmm
They're like take purano kapur, puran juta, be the learn to cook, work your way up. They were not allowed to handle money or any transactions until they were to prove themselves. And like the same thing, they were like multiple families in like one room.
What
It's
keeps them from
insane.
migrating
crazy.
legally, though? Is it just because they're unable to hit that socioeconomic? Is that like a socioeconomic barrier?
Basically, every country has their rules of how you can enter the country, whether it's a tourist visa, or work permit, or work visa, whatever, student, right? So
Hmm.
it's no different in Europe either. I mean, you can't just walk in and be like, I'm going to live here now, even if you have all the money in the world. So it's a similar thing where the even in the U.S., if you think about, you know,
What's
all
happening in
the
Texas
other
right
his
now?
all the other populations, not just Bangladeshis, like you think about all the bordering, countries like Mexico, whatever, and they're constantly trying to come in illegally. It's because it's very, very difficult to become a resident in the US. I mean, like people always ask me, "Oh, why don't your parents live here?" It's like my parents aren't citizens here, right?
And
Like
it's
that's
not so
not
easy to just be like,
yeah, they
Yeah.
can't just show up one day and be like, "Okay, I'm just going to stay with you." Yes, it's easier for them now because I'm a citizen and I can sponsor them. But like people will ask, "How come your brother's not here?" It's going to take 10 years from when I submit the application to sponsor him to when
mhm.
if he gets approved.
And
So,
recently I heard, very recently I heard that this immigration, when you sponsor your parents through the US immigration system, there you have to like give DNA samples to actually prove that you're, it's not birth
related.
certificates, like none of it is even enough anymore.
I
You
think
have
I
to
don't
I
like,
th I think that's a good system, though. I mean, if you're going to be doing, if you're
it
going
yeah.
to be
is,
coming in and all of that, then
it is,
it's
but you
best
have
to
to
have
pay
all of
for
the
those
measures.
services, and
Yeah.
DNA tests are really expensive. So it's like a lot of these um, guardrails actually make it harder for people.
Yeah.
It's
I
not as
don't know.
accessible because those tests are so expensive. I mean, any just to file is so expensive.
Yeah,
So it
just a
might be
file is
easier for
expensive.
us maybe, but that's where socioeconomic I think comes in is when if you're not in that in the good place, but
Yeah.
you need to bring your family over. And all of it starts with just having access to any kind of like upwardly mobile system, which we don't have in Bangladesh. And
Well,
then, so
just
what the movie
yeah.
shows, and we heard through like Bablu and some others, is like you get there, by the time you get here and realize that you were scammed, it's almost too
Mm,
late. And you'd either have to turn yourself in to go back, because once you're there, you can't go back. And
You're
so you're
stuck.
stuck. Right. And then there's that. And then there's also like you spent all your money. Now, how do you even face your family when to go back? So
yeah.
you have to like make a way. I mean, so many people find ways to do it. And now I think places like New York, Venice, like where these hubs are, there's more loopholes and there's more
Mhm.
people who are advocating for better systems and like humane way. But I mean, that's now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
was in
mean,
back in the day.
But either way, they're all entering illegally. So no government is going to support and help people like, okay, let me make this a little easier for you guys to come in.
And nor should they. I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually a really interesting documentary about refugees on Netflix. It's actually Syrian refugees. It's a story about like 5 or 6 different families who leave the war zone, and they're essentially refugees. So same thing. They're literally walking by foot to different countries, and like who's going to let them in? And then eventually some of these European countries let you in, but there's this whole program of like, okay, you have 6 months. If you
Yeah.
can't find something in the 6 months, you need to go. And it's not like they don't have money, they can't speak the language, they have nowhere to stay, and a lot of these countries are cold. So I mean, it's horrible. Even for people
Yeah.
who are escaping, death essentially, they still don't get a lot of help. And we're seeing this in the U.S. too. We have a lot of Venezuelan refugees right now in the Chicago area, and they're just
They would
sleeping
just
outside in
bust
this
there.
cold.
Aren't
Yeah,
they
and
like
it's
aren't they asking people to like see if they could sponsor families to come and stay? And
I
who
mean,
was
there's
that?
some of that, but we're talking about like hundreds of refugees coming in, and
Yeah, but be honest, would you allow someone to
no,
come
I
in and live
wouldn't.
on?
No,
Why
I
wouldn't?
wouldn't, because I have to protect my own family, and I just
Yeah.
don't know, because when you're that desperate, what are you willing to do, right? And uh, nothing against them, but that's kind of where you are. And so
Yep.
I don't
Okay, so
know,
that
yeah.
reminded me of the Netflix show with Julia Roberts. Did you guys see this?
I don't
What
watch
is it
TV.
called? The one that just came
Sorry.
out tomorrow.
It's basically this where the world is ending. They don't realize what's happening.
Right.
And then at the end, it's like nobody trusts anybody because you have to protect yourself. And so it's like
Yeah.
if someone needs help and you even know the person, it's your neighbor and their son is dying because of whatever is like, it's basically cyber um,
Mhm.
terrorism.
Mhm.
And then they put stuff like in the air, like planes are falling out of the sky, like it's pura kiamot. And nobody's helping anybody. Like
Yeah.
children, it's everybody starts to turn against each other.
Well, maybe you need to not watch those before you get on flights.